Alrighty guys, so last class we looked at lines and we looked at every way to write an equation for a line with gradient intercept form, standard form, point gradient form. Today we're going to look at a special type of line, and it's important that we know how to graph this type of line because we're actually going to use these to create specific types of diagrams moving forward. So that type of line that we need to be able to graph is something that's called a perpendicular bisector. And so in math, we like to name these things quite literally. So if you had no idea what a perpendicular bisector was, you could almost figure it out if you knew what the word perpendicular is. So you should be saying, okay, perpendicular, that's 90 degrees, all right? The suffix bi right there means two, and sector just means areas. So we're gonna be dealing with something that is perpendicular, it creates a 90-degree angle, and it cuts something into two. So specifically that definition says it goes through the midpoint and is perpendicular to the line that the midpoint is on. So when we're doing that, those are the two characteristics of a perpendicular bisector. And so all that I'm going to go over with you all is actually finding a perpendicular bisector and how to actually write an equation for one. So if you'll remember from the first day of class, the two things that you need to write a to write a equation of a line is you need a point and you need a slope. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to calculate a slope here. So the slope with the subscript of AB here, the gradient here that we're going to find, we're going to say the y2 here is 7, and we're going to say that's going to be a plus 3 because it's going to be a minus negative 3. We've got, so plus 3 over x2 here, which is negative 2. And then we've got minus 4. And so this is going to give us 10 over negative 6, which is going to reduce, if we take a 2 out of both, to negative 5/3. Now, as a reminder of perpendicular slope, if the slope is negative 5/3, the perpendicular slope is the opposite reciprocal. So the sign's going to change, the fraction is going to flip. That is a fact of mathematics. So the perpendicular slope here is going to be positive 3 over 5. So we've got our slope now. Now we know for the point here, it's got to go through the midpoint. So we've got to figure out what the midpoint is here. So formula-wise, you can use a formula to do this, or you can use just common sense. This time I will opt to use the midpoint formula. So we're going to average 4 and negative 2. So 4 plus negative 2, 4 minus 2 over 2, that's going to be our x-coordinate. The y-coordinate, negative 3 and 7, you can either think about what number is between those, or you can add those two numbers. So the midpoint here, 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4. Divided by 2 is 2 as well. So this right here is our midpoint. Now, once you have the perpendicular slope and once you have the midpoint, you are now ready to write your equation. We're going to use point gradient form, which as a reminder is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's in that IB formula booklet that you all have. So I'm just going to fill in the midpoint coordinates here. So y minus 2 equals the slope here of the perpendicular 3/5 times x minus 1. And that right there is the equation of the perpendicular bisector. So what I would encourage you all to do real quick, this is a pretty short lesson. I would go ahead, if you feel pretty good about what went on up here, I would pause this and I would try to do this bottom one right here on your own. And if you can get it, you've probably got finding the perpendicular bisector down. I will assign a couple of problems on it for independent practice. So you all are welcome to do whatever you would like. They're your notes. At the end of the day, you know if you understand this material or not. So again, we're going to find the slope of AB, same type of thing here. So we're going to say, all right, y2 is 7. We're going to do minus 1 over 5 minus 3. That's going to be the equivalent of 6 divided by 2, which is going to give us a slope of 3. So what that means is that our perpendicular slope here, this is technically 3 over 1. I guess I should have circled that larger. I apologize. We're going to flip, we're going to do the opposite reciprocal here. So we're going to make it negative and we're going to flip that fraction. So our perpendicular slope for our bisector here, that is going to be negative 1/3. So now the midpoint here is actually a little bit easier to find. Not really dealing with any negative numbers. So I'm going to opt to not use the formula here. I'm just going to figure it out in my head. All right. The number that's in the middle of 3 and 5 is 4. So the x coordinate is going to be 4. The number that's in the middle of 1 and 7 is also 4. So now once we have our perpendicular slope, once we have our midpoint, we're ready to substitute into slope gradient form up there. And we can say, all right, y minus 4 equals negative 1/3 x minus 4. And we are good to go. So if you all have any questions on that at all, you are welcome to stop by Zoom, shoot me a text through Google Chat, email me, whatever works for you all. Thanks.